If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Mint's premium wireless is $15 a month. But I'd like to offer one other perk. We have no stores. That means no small talk. Crazy weather we're having. No, it's not. It's just weather. It is an introvert's dream. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan. $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Joining me now is Joel Gilbert. Joel is a documentary filmmaker and an investigative journalist, writing often for the Gateway Pundit. He has been way out in front, working in tandem with Sam Antar of whitecollarfraud.com in breaking the stories about the egregious series of crimes by New York Attorney General Letitia James. The New York Times and the Washington Post and other mainstream media outlets continue to insist that there was insufficient evidence to charge New York Attorney General Letitia James for mortgage fraud and bank fraud, but a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia thought otherwise, and now she faces justice. Joel Gilbert, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Great to be back. Thank you, Roger.
So you were involved in the very beginning of this. There is no question that Letitia James, in the power of attorney, involved in securing a mortgage on her Virginia home, said that she would make the home her principal legal residence where she would live with her niece. Some may say, well, that's not all that a big deal, but the truth is, it is part, as you have demonstrated, of a much longer pattern of mortgage fraud and other financial fraud, including the lack of disclosure on her state-required disclosure form. So if you would kind of give us a refresher, Joel, let's start from the beginning. If I'm not mistaken, Letitia James claimed in her first application for a mortgage that her father was her husband in order to use his balance sheet to qualify for the mortgage.
That's absolutely correct. There's a period where it starts very early. She's only 24 years old. Her and her father pose as husband and wife to get a $30,000 loan so Letitia can buy a 2-story townhome in Queens. It continues to when she buys an apartment building in Brooklyn, 5-unit building, and she does a series of refinances over 20 years from 2001, where she always claims it's a 4-unit building or it's a 1-unit building in order to get residential interest rates and residential closing rates, which are both significantly lower than she would have gotten had she admitted it was a 5-unit building. She would have gotten commercial rates and commercial closing costs. And then amazingly, even after she was Attorney General of New York and a very high-profile person, she buys 3 properties in the state of Virginia, and on each one, she either claims it'll be her primary residence or her secondary residence in order to qualify for the loan. So I have an article actually coming out tomorrow in Gateway Pundit where I trace this all back to her fake marriage to her father. And I believe that's what really sparked this lifetime of mortgage fraud. Because what happened is she created a precedent where she discovered that if she falsified personal information, she could get these financial rewards and never have a consequence for it. So it became this lifetime habit, and it turned into decades of mortgage misrepresentations. And I think what happens is when someone commits a mortgage fraud at a young age, it creates a psychological pattern that they think making fraudulent claims, especially with relatives like Letitia did both in Queens with her father and with her niece in Virginia, it teaches them that every time you do an act of deception, it makes you feel more invincible, and it makes her think she's being really clever. and the lines of being legal or criminal are kind of warped. She loses her sense of moral compass. So I think that's the only explanation for Letitia's behavior, because it really is a 43-year pattern, and she's going to have no success in court claiming that it wasn't my intent. You have to prove intent to convict someone. How can she avoid the jury believing she intended to do it when it was 43 years of fraud, and especially when she herself was prosecuting people for mortgage fraud in New York, so she definitely knew the law.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that she has actually prosecuted successfully people for doing precisely what she herself has done in this instance. I heard an incredible interview with that intellectual giant Joy Reid, in which Letitia said, prosecuting people for mortgage fraud is very, very rare. It's not nearly as rare as her prosecution of President Donald Trump under a state law under which no one in the history of the great empire state has ever been prosecuted, in which he claimed that he overvalued the value of his assets in order to qualify for commercial real estate loans, all of which he paid back on time and in full, making the lenders as much as $40 million in interest. Every one of those lenders said publicly that they would do the deal again and they would lend the Trump organization money again on those terms. But, of course, they weren't allowed to testify in that trial because trials in Manhattan are politically rigged. You, however, were the first one to report about Letitia James' niece, who is a fugitive from justice. The UK Daily Mail followed you by several months, but it turns out the North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections is actively searching for Nakia Monique Thompson, the fugitive daughter of New York Attorney General Letitia James, who is living in this home in Virginia that Letitia lied to get a mortgage for. Tell us about this.
That's right. I mean, I guess it's a compliment. I broke this story back in August, and sure enough, here, 4 or 5 months later, it's broken all over the world that Letitia James is harboring a fugitive, which is her niece's daughter, in one of her Virginia homes. Now, what's interesting is Letitia, to defend herself after Sam Antar had broke that part of the story, she actually spoke publicly, and she said, the reason I bought this house with my niece was to provide a home for her children. I wanted her children to have a home, as if she's trying to get sympathy for helping kids. But in fact, both of the niece's daughters were adult jailbirds, one of them with an active arrest warrant out of North Carolina. I actually spoke to the probation department down there to ask when they were going to pick her up. And Letitia knows she's harboring a fugitive. She bought the home specifically to harbor a fugitive. So that's another 5-year sentence. So I think that with all these additional indictments coming, Letitia James herself might have a longer rap sheet than her two nieces, because Letitia's fraud spans 43 years, while the two nieces have only got about 20 years of criminal activity going on. So it's a messed up family. It's a lot of crime running in the family. And Letitia has somehow felt not vulnerable if she does fraudulent mortgage deals with her father or her niece. She somehow thinks it's okay. So I don't think she's going to get out of it.
And then I guess late last week, a second niece, other than Nakia, hit the news. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Carolyn Hairston is the younger daughter. Now, she has felony charges for firearm possession. Some of her felonies are not public because she was under 18 at the time. We can't get all the information. But she has, just when you thought, mortgage fraud could not get more exciting, this girl has a Twitter account of her doing these X-rated acts and having an OnlyFans account where she's asking people to pay her to do sexual favors online. So it's a very messed up family. Now we can understand Letitia James a little better based on who her relatives are. But the Kayla Hairston deleted her Twitter account. I had the misfortune of looking at it. And she's another relative with criminal history that's living in one of Letitia's homes, who has a Class 5 felony, who has all these arrests for grand larceny, for weapons possession, on and on. So Letitia's in good company. Her father participated in a fraud with her. Her niece's children are felons. I think the real Letitia James, real personality and family history is coming out now.
Speaking of Nakia Thompson, these were serious charges. This was not double parking, as I recall.
Oh, no. Nakia, by the way, is very close to Letitia. She, on her LinkedIn page, she said she worked for Letitia when she was public advocate, city council, and attorney general. So she knows Letitia quite well. And she has 20 years of crimes in Virginia, North Carolina. They include prison sentences for contributing to the delinquency of a minor, abuse of a child, grand larceny, assault and battery, trespassing. She even got a charge for, while she was in prison, she even got a charge for malicious conduct. So these are some nasty people that abuse. We got one abusing children, one with all these X-rated acts on Twitter looking for money. It's not a people I want to associate with, but I think Letitia's comfortable with them because she's one of them. She's committed more crimes than they have.
Yeah, looking at your story some months ago, not just contributing to the delinquency of a minor, but abuse of a child, possession of burglary tools, third-degree larceny, grand larceny, assault and battery, petty larceny, trespassing, shoplifting, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, possession of marijuana, driving with a suspended license, and conspiracy to commit larceny. Yet the mainstream media continues to insist that this is all just a revenge play by President Donald Trump, and there is no real crime here. It is interesting that the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, one Eric Siebert, who never disclosed that he had a conflict of interest in the James Comey case, which is in the same jurisdiction. Siebert's father-in-law, that is his wife's father, is the godfather to James Comey's daughter. And beyond that, he is also represented Comey himself. So those who are claiming that the Comey case, like the Letitia James case, is just weaponization of the criminal justice system, they thought that neither one of them would be punished. They thought that no grand jury would indict either one of them. Both James Comey, the former FBI director, and Letitia James, the highest law enforcement officer in New York State, charged by Donald Trump's appointee, Lindsay Halligan, who seems to be one impressive lady, dropped into the situation to pursue justice. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show here on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we'll be right back with Joel Gilbert, investigative journalist, writing in this case for the Gateway Pundit, on the other side.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. In the next hour, we're going to be taking your calls and your emails. That number, 800-848-9222, 800-848-9222, or email us at askstone@rogerstoneshow.com. That's askstone@rogerstoneshow. Whether it is politics, news, fashion, food, no matter what your question, I'm going to be entertaining as many of your questions by email and by phone as we possibly can. And yes, I am going to give you one of my mother's great Hungarian recipes, so you might want to get a pad and a pen ready if you are a foodie. All right, we return to Joel Gilbert, investigative journalist and documentary filmmaker extraordinaire. It is really Joel Gilbert working very closely with Sam Antar at whitecollarfraud.com, kind of the Batman and Robin of investigative journalists when it comes to the epic corruption of Letitia James. Joel, do you think it is probable that Letitia James may face additional superseding charges, which I'm not a lawyer, but lawyers tell me is very common in cases like this, because once you have mortgage fraud and bank fraud, you often have tax fraud and wire fraud.
Well, when I look at the current charges, this is the minimal thing she did. This is the least of things that she did. She has a history of white-collar crime with mortgages, many of which are still within the statute of limitations. There's a whole separate grand jury in New York State, forget about Virginia, with that's covering all the crimes related to her Brooklyn apartment building, all the misrepresentations, all the phony information she gave to get a loan, the most recent of which was a credit line mortgage loan for $200,000 in 2021, where she claimed that her building only had one unit in it when it had 5, so she got lower interest rates and no high closing costs. So those are much more serious than what she did in Virginia. So I do believe if they're going to charge her in Virginia, they must have a plan to charge her everywhere else. I think Letitia's going to have to resign, maybe cop a plea for a few years in prison, because her nieces committed all kind of crazy crimes but didn't make any money. Letitia, she had white-collar crimes, and she made millions off of banks by scamming them year after year. So I think it's coming.
Yeah, what I found amazing here, this is the work, again, of Sam Antar, who figured out that there are astonishing items that were not reported on her legally required financial disclosure forms, that, in fact, when it comes to her property in Norfolk, Virginia, she had 2 mortgages. Now, this is a property that is appraised at having a value of between $100,000 and $150,000, but in her 2023 disclosure, she listed 2 mortgages, a Freedom mortgage for between $150,000 and $250,000, and National mortgage between $100,000 and $150,000. So the total mortgage value would be between $250,000 to $400,000 on a property that had been appraised with a value of between $100,000 and $150,000. So the loan-to-value ratio is 167% to 400%. That's mathematically impossible. Understanding.
Let me point out that it appears she might have gotten multiple loans on the same property without telling the other lender. So the government has the ability to subpoena documents that Sam and I don't have the ability to do. So I think they have much more information than we have. And a reminder that it's a staggering irony, because Letitia James was supposed to enforce the law, enforce the mortgage laws, but she broke a ton of them, and no one's more deserving than her, because she targeted the president. She ran for office saying, I'm going to target somebody. We've never heard of that in this country. It's unheard of, so she deserves to be investigated, and I think we caught her.
She is the one, of course, famously said, no one is above the law. Evidently, that includes Letitia James herself.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.